Today we're going to talk about this pen, the Pilot V pen. This is a fountain pen. I think I got some requests to review the Pilot Varsity. Well, I don't have a Varsity. That's a disposable fountain pen, and so is this. The V pen, Varsity V, I don't think they're absolutely the same, but I do think they're related. I bought a pen at cultpens.com. I think it was a Pilot pen, and I got, there was sort of a gift where you get the whole V pen, or Pilot V, whatever you like to call it, range, the collection for free, which includes a marker, a sort of technical pen, a roller ball, some other stuff, and one fountain pen. So these are disposable pens, every single one of them, but they do have liquid ink. So if you look at this, you probably see that there's an ink level that actually changes. So I thought it would be interesting to cover this. I'm not going to cover the highlighter and all that. I mean, that sort of this pen, maybe different color, different type of tip, but you know, the basic system is the same. Okay, so I'll cover the parts of the pen, tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then I'll do a writing sample. So this is a simple pen, meant to be disposable. A disposable fountain pen kind of defeats the whole purpose of a fountain pen, which allows you to refill it, but I know there are some videos online of people who show you how to refill this stuff. It's not meant to be refilled, but apparently you can do it. Okay, so the parts of the pen. Well, the cap, everything about this pen is simple. It's simple design, and I think that's okay. A nice little blue thing here at the end of the cap. The clip, plastic, very pliable. I think this will actually snap if I take this too far. White cap, I kind of enjoy that. It's not a very shiny plastic. The barrel is much shinier. The cap is a bit matte. I think that looks pretty cool, actually. Then, of course, in the barrel you have a V pen. It has the Pilot logo. And it actually says, which fascinates me, erasable ink. I'm not sure whether you can. I think you have ink you can actually erase with a specific type of eraser, but you also have not really liquid, but a type of eraser that looks like a felt-tipped pen. You just put that over the fountain pen ink and it will dissolve, but it doesn't do that with every ink. So apparently with this ink you can do that. I'll see what I can do in the writing sample. And it has a barcode. That looks pretty cheap, but okay. And at the end of the barrel, there's another blue thing. That's funny. You can actually look in to the barrel from that point, but it's liquid ink. So there's ink up to about this level. If I hold it against the light, I can see that this part is open. So you got about this much of ink, which is probably not a bad, you know, amount of ink. Now what do you call that? It's enough ink to do quite some writing. Okay. Here we have the feed. You can see the feed. I'm not sure whether this thing writes straight away. I just opened it. I actually gave it to someone else. I just stole it for the review. Okay, it writes straight away. That's nice. Nice blue ink too. By the way, you'll see that in the writing sample later on. Simple feed. I've seen this before on the Pilot Petit 1. That had this type of feed. Looks a bit like it has the same section, and it definitely has the same nib. Now, the nib is non-spectacular. I'll just put it close to the camera. I know it won't focus, but you know, just to give you a bit of an idea of the shape. It says Pilot M. Now the M is fascinating. I can't remember whether my Petit 1 had an M or a fine nib. In any case, it's not a bad nib, and if the pen goes empty, I don't want to refill it, then I'll probably just pull off the nib, because the nib is okay. Feed looks a bit futuristic. Not fantastic, but you know, it's kind of flat. I kind of enjoy that. Okay, so these are the parts of the pen. What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? Well, to be honest, I think it looks pretty cheap. It's very light. It feels very plasticky. But it also has some positive sides. The nib, I think, just putting it to the paper, is not particularly scratchy. And if you consider the low cost of the price, I think that's actually not a bad thing. I mean, this could have been a terrible nib, but it isn't. The fact that it's disposable, I told you about that. I don't really like that. I mean, if you make a fountain pen, I think you should make a pen that can be refilled easily. That's the point of a fountain pen. But imagine you are a person, you are new to fountain pens, you want to try them out, but you're just not absolutely sure whether the a fountain pen is good for you. Then, you know, it may be useful. I'm sorry, I'll come back to why I was just disrupted for a second. You're not sure whether a fountain pen is useful for you, then this might be a very good choice. It's not that expensive, and if you don't like it, you know, you can write it until the ink runs out and you just throw it out. I think that is an interesting concept. This is not a pen I would buy, and if this runs out of ink, I won't buy a new one. I don't like it that much. But for starters, and people starting in this hobby, I think it's actually an interesting option. Okay, what just drew my attention? The nib, the tipping on the nib has a very typical shape. I think you cannot really see that on the camera, but the tipping actually points up. It's like an extreme Waverly nib, which is like curved somewhat, except that it's not the actual nib that's being curved, it's just the tipping seems to point up. I'll try to show you that a bit better in the writing sample later on. I just noticed that. I've never seen that. It's a very typical shape, but never mind. Okay, so what I like about it, it's cheap. It'll get the job done. It is a fountain pen. It has liquid ink. It writes well. It comes in a pretty nice blue, actually. I kind of like that. And, you know, if you're starting out, I think it could be an interesting pen. It does post. I mean, it does have a decent size. Even unposted, I'd say. It's not that bad. So, typical. You know, just a typical pen. And I think that's all there's to it. So, now we'll do a writing sample. And that's all. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Okay, so here we go with this interesting pen. Now, I mean, I'm not sure how well I can show you this, but look at that. Isn't that funny? And that tipping sort of just points up. I don't think I've ever seen that. Well, doesn't really matter. What we have here is a Pilot V pen. Ink is of course supplied with the pen, right? It's liquid ink, it's right in there. The nib is medium, and I guess this is some type of Pilot Blue, right? They put in there. Okay, so bit of writing. I have to tell you, I'm ashamed to admit that this nib is very smooth. It really is. It's for such a cheap pen. Maybe it's because of that weird shape, but it's that was just some fast writing. There was a bit of a skip there. I had the feeling the nib slipped away, but I'm not absolutely sure. I think it's a very decent performance. It is a lot of liquid ink, and as you can see here, it's a nice wet nib. I mean, I kind of enjoy that. See, it's wet. Now what I'm interested in is what amount of flex are we going to get here? I have no idea, so okay, so that doesn't seem to be a whole lot. What is that? It's the feed. The feed goes up pretty far and it scrapes across the paper. Okay. Okay, well you get some line variation, but it's pretty minimal. So don't get this for the line variation. That's what I seem to remember from um, the Petit 1. Sorry, I was just thinking maybe I could pull the nib out a little bit. Oh, did that work? There we go, that's better. Okay, so there was some pen first aid. It seemed to work. There we have that stupid issue again. Okay, well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's for simple writing only. I'm really pushing down on the nib there. So if you don't, it looks pretty cool. So, okay, there you have it, the Pilot V pen. Clearly it has its issues, but I think it performs very well. For such a cheap pen, you get a nice wet nib. I like this ink. I think this blue ink is pretty cool. Very nice, dark, intense. Looks a little bit like Waterman Florida blue. Not bad at all. I really don't think this is a particularly scratchy nib. You hear a bit of sound, but it's not. It doesn't feel scratchy. I've definitely used scratchier pens. So, not bad. If you're looking for a cheap pen, you want to try out fountain pens, I think this would be a very viable option. And that's all there's to it. So, I hope this was useful, and bye.